The heavy rain pounded against the windows of the coastal weather station as Dr. Maya paced back and forth, her eyes fixed on the massive wall of screens before her. Something wasn't right with the data she was seeing. After 15 years of studying hurricanes, she knew their patterns like the back of her hand, but this one was different. The Category 5 storm she'd been tracking for the past week was behaving in ways that defied every natural law she knew. "Hey, take a look at this," she called out to her colleague, Dr. Raj, pointing at an unusual formation in the storm's eye. The veteran meteorologist adjusted his glasses and leaned in closer to the screen, his forehead wrinkling with concern. The hurricane's eye wall wasn't just stable, it was perfectly geometric, maintaining a hexagonal shape that simply couldn't occur naturally. They worked through the night, fueled by countless cups of coffee and the nagging feeling that they were on the verge of something big. Maya pulled up historical data from the past 5 years, comparing storm patterns and atmospheric readings. As she overlaid the datasets, her hands began to shake. Every major hurricane in the past 18 months had shown the same impossible geometric patterns, hidden so subtly that nobody had noticed until now. "Raj, remember that weird static we've been picking up on the weather bands?" Maya asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "What if it's not interference?" She quickly pulled up the audio recordings, running them through a different frequency analysis. The random noise suddenly transformed into clear patterns. Patterns that looked eerily like a form of communication. The realization hit them both at the same time. These weren't natural storms at all. Something, or someone, was using Earth's weather as cover, hiding massive objects within the hurricanes themselves. The evidence was right there in front of them. Specific air pressure irregularities, impossible wind patterns, and electromagnetic readings that couldn't be explained by any natural phenomenon. Maya's hands flew across the keyboard as she began cross-referencing military and civilian radar data. The storm tracks perfectly matched reports of unexplained radar anomalies that various air traffic control centers had been reporting for months. Commercial pilots had been seeing strange lights in the clouds, but everyone had dismissed their stories as tricks of light or exhaustion-induced hallucinations. Just then, the entire building shook as thunder cracked overhead. But when Maya looked at the readings, her blood ran cold. There wasn't supposed to be any lightning in this part of the storm system. She and Raj rushed to the window, looking up at the churning clouds above. For a brief moment, as lightning flashed again, they saw it, a massive dark shape moving behind the clouds, its surface reflecting the storm's fury. Their phones started ringing simultaneously. Within minutes, the quiet weather station transformed into a hub of frantic activity. Military officials began arriving, their faces grim as they reviewed the data. Maya's discovery had confirmed what some had suspected, but none had been able to prove. Earth was being watched, and their observers had chosen the perfect hiding spot, inside the very storms that humans have learned to fear and avoid. As she helped the military personnel set up their equipment, Maya couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. Humanity had always seen hurricanes as unstoppable forces of nature, impossible to control or fight against. But now, looking at the strange shapes moving within the storm, she began to wonder if these destructive weather patterns might hold the key to Earth's defense. What started as a normal night shift at a weather station had turned into the biggest discovery in human history. As Maya stared out at the raging storm, watching lightning illuminate the massive shapes hiding within, she knew nothing would ever be the same again. Their visitors had chosen to hide in nature's fury, but they were about to learn that humans had centuries of experience dealing with storms, and this time, we'd be ready for them. The United Nations emergency meeting room buzzed with tension as world leaders gathered around the massive oak table. Dr. Maya's discovery had turned their world upside down, and now they faced a choice that would change the course of human history. The screens around them displayed satellite images of the strange objects hiding in storms across the globe. "Ladies and gentlemen," Maya began, her voice steady despite her racing heart, "what you're looking at isn't just another hurricane. These storms are being used as camouflage by vessels that are definitely not from Earth." She clicked through to the next slide, showing the geometric patterns she'd discovered. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. An older general leaned forward, his weathered face creased with concern. "Doctor, you're telling us aliens are using our weather as some kind of cosmic hiding spot?" He paused, rubbing his chin. But why haven't they attacked? Maya smiled slightly. That's the interesting part. They're studying us, learning our weaknesses. But in doing so, they've revealed their own biggest weakness. They're using our storms because their technology is vulnerable to extreme weather conditions. That's when she unveiled her bold proposal. Project Hurricane wasn't just another defense program. It was humanity's chance to turn nature itself into a weapon. The concept was simple but revolutionary. Build ships that could not only withstand a hurricane's fury, but actually control it. The room erupted in heated discussion. Some called it impossible, others called it brilliant. But when Maya showed them the preliminary designs, even the skeptics leaned in closer. The Hurricane-class battleship would be unlike anything ever built, a marvel of engineering designed to harness the raw power of tropical storms. Look at these simulations, Maya explained, pointing to a 3D model spinning slowly on the screen. The ship's outer hull is designed to channel wind energy, not fight against it. We're not trying to beat nature, we're going to work with it. The Japanese representative spoke up, her voice calm but intense. How long until we can build one? Others nodded in agreement. The threat of alien invasion had done something unprecedented. It had united the world's powers in a single cause. Engineers and scientists from every major nation were called in. What would normally take years of bureaucracy was approved in hours. The project was codenamed Operation Natural Fury, and construction began immediately at shipyards around the world. Maya worked around the clock with the design team, perfecting every detail. The ship's hull would be covered in thousands of special panels that could redirect wind energy. The bridge would house the most advanced weather monitoring systems ever created. But the heart of the ship was something truly revolutionary, a weather control center that could actually influence the storm around it. Think of it like conducting an orchestra, Maya explained to the project team. We're not creating the music, we're just directing it. The hurricane is our orchestra, and this ship will be our conductor's baton. Late one night, as she stared at the construction footage from the main shipyard, Maya caught a glimpse of something that made her heart skip. Another storm was forming off the coast, and within it, she could see the now familiar geometric patterns of alien vessels. They were watching, but they had no idea what humanity was building. The first Hurricane-class ship was taking shape faster than anyone had thought possible. As Maya watched workers swarm over the massive hull, she couldn't help but smile. The aliens thought they were clever, hiding in Earth's strongest storms. But they were about to learn something important about humans. We don't just survive nature's fury, we learn to use it. Project Hurricane was more than just a military response. It was humanity's way of saying we wouldn't go down without a fight. And when the aliens finally showed themselves, they'd learn why Earth's weather had always been both respected and feared. The storm was coming, and this time, we'd be the ones controlling it. The roar of helicopter blades cut through the morning air as Commander Lee stepped onto the deck of the world's first Hurricane-class battleship. After 20 years of naval service, he thought he'd seen everything, but this ship left him speechless. The HMS Tempest was massive, its hull gleaming with thousands of wind-channeling panels that caught the sunrise like scales on a metal dragon. Impressive, isn't it? Dr. Maya walked up beside him, her clipboard clutched tightly against her chest. Those panels you're looking at can each rotate independently to direct wind flow. When they work together, they can help us steer a hurricane. Lee ran his hand along one of the panels, feeling the smooth, cold metal. You know, when they first told me about this project, I thought everyone had lost their minds. A ship that can control storms. It sounded impossible. He smiled, shaking his head. But looking at her now, the next few weeks were a blur of training and testing. The crew had to learn an entirely new way of thinking about sailing. This wasn't just about avoiding storms, it was about becoming one with them. The ship's advanced weather center looked more like a scientific laboratory than a traditional bridge, filled with screens showing wind patterns, pressure systems, and energy readings. The first real test came on a cloudy Tuesday morning. The Tempest headed out into the Atlantic, where a tropical storm was brewing. As they approached the storm system, Lee stood at the command console, his hands steady on the controls despite the butterflies in his stomach. All systems are ready, his first officer reported. Weather Control Center is online. Hull integrity at 100%. Lee took a deep breath. Take us in. The tempest pushed into the outer bands of the storm. Rain hammered against the reinforced windows as wind speeds increased. But unlike normal ships that would be tossed around like toys, the Tempest's special hull started to come alive. Each panel adjusted automatically, channeling the wind's energy around and through the ship instead of against it. "This is incredible," Maya whispered, watching the readings. "The ship isn't just surviving the storm, it's becoming part of it." As they pushed deeper into the storm, something amazing happened. The wind channeling panels began working in perfect harmony, creating a pocket of calm around the ship while using the storm's energy to power their movements. It was like riding the eye of a hurricane, but with complete control. Then came the moment everyone had been waiting for. Lee engaged the weather control systems, and the ship began to influence the storm around them. Through careful adjustments of the panels and the ship's revolutionary energy systems, they could actually strengthen or weaken different parts of the storm. "It's working," Maya exclaimed, pointing to the data screens. "We're not just riding the storm, we're steering it." The test lasted for hours, with the crew learning how to maneuver through different parts of the storm system. They discovered they could create paths of calm within the chaos, or concentrate the storm's fury in specific directions. It was like having nature itself as a weapon. As they finally guided the Tempest back to port, exhausted but triumphant, Lee couldn't help but think about their hidden observers. Somewhere up there, hiding in their own storms, the aliens were watching. But they had no idea what humanity had just achieved. The success of the Tempest's first test changed everything. News spread quickly through military channels, and soon more Hurricane-class ships were being fast-tracked for construction. Humanity had done more than just build a new kind of ship. They'd found a way to harness one of nature's most powerful forces. That night, as Lee looked out over the quiet harbor where the Tempest was docked, he saw another storm building on the horizon. But this time, instead of feeling concern, he felt ready. The aliens thought they were clever, using our storms as hiding places, but they were about to learn that humans had just changed the rules of the game. Nobody expected the aliens to reveal themselves on a perfectly ordinary Tuesday afternoon. It started with a strange ripple in the clouds above major cities worldwide. Then, like curtains being pulled aside, massive ships emerged from their stormy hiding places. They were beautiful in a terrifying way. Sleek vessels that seemed to be made of liquid metal, stretching for miles across the sky. The first message they broadcast was simple and clear. "Your planet is now under our protection. Surrender, and you will be spared." The words appeared on every screen, in every language, across the globe. Their ships positioned themselves above major coastal cities, casting enormous shadows that turned day into twilight. In the command center, Dr. Maya and Commander Lee watched the situation unfold with a mix of fear and determination. "They think we're helpless," Maya said, studying the alien vessels through high-powered cameras. "Look at how they're positioning themselves. They're completely exposed to the weather patterns." Lee nodded, noticing the same thing. The alien ships, while incredibly advanced, were hovering right in the paths of natural storm formations. They've gotten so used to hiding in our storms, they've forgotten what it's like to face them head-on. The world's governments scrambled to respond. Some wanted to surrender immediately, afraid of the aliens' superior technology. Others demanded immediate military action. But in the midst of the chaos, a small group of people who knew about the Hurricane-class project saw an opportunity. "Their ships are designed for space," Maya explained during an emergency meeting. "They used our storms as cover because their technology is vulnerable to extreme weather. They never expected us to learn how to control the weather itself." The aliens grew impatient with humanity's delayed response. They fired warning shots, precise beams of energy that carved perfect circles in uninhabited areas. Their message was clear. They could destroy us at any time. But they made one crucial mistake. Every energy blast created atmospheric disturbances that actually strengthened the brewing storms around their ships. Through their secret monitoring systems, the Project Hurricane team had been gathering data on the alien vessels since they appeared. Each scan revealed more about their weaknesses. The ship's outer hulls were incredibly strong against conventional weapons, but they constantly had to adjust their energy shields to compensate for natural weather patterns. "They're like spacewalkers who never learn to swim," Lee said, watching the alien ships struggle against a sudden gust of wind. They can handle the vacuum of space, but they don't know what to do with atmospheric pressure and unstable weather conditions. The aliens' command ship hovered above New York Harbor, its massive form reflecting the sunlight like a second moon. They were so confident in their superiority that they didn't notice the small storms beginning to form around the coastlines, storms that weren't entirely natural. In secret harbors around the world, the HMS Tempest and its newly completed sister ships prepared for battle. Their crews worked through the night, studying weather patterns and running simulations. They only had one chance to show these invaders that humanity wasn't as defenseless as they thought. Maya looked at the latest weather satellite images, a small smile forming on her face. Perfect storm conditions were developing exactly as they planned. The aliens had no idea that their greatest advantage, their ability to hide in Earth's storms, was about to become their biggest weakness. As dawn approached, Commander Lee stood on the bridge of the Tempest, watching his crew make final preparations. The aliens had given humanity an ultimatum: surrender by sunrise, or face the consequences. But they were about to learn something important about the human spirit. We don't surrender when backed into a corner. We innovate, we adapt, and sometimes we turn nature itself into our strongest ally. The stage was set for humanity's first real battle against an alien force. And this time, we had the power of Earth's weather on our side. The storms were coming, and for once, they would be fighting for us, not against us. The radar screen in the Tempest's command center lit up like a Christmas tree as the super hurricane began to form off the Florida coast. It was the perfect storm, not because nature made it that way, but because they had helped it along. Dr. Maya watched the swirling patterns with a mix of awe and anticipation. "Look at these wind speeds," she said, pointing to the readings. "It's already at Category 4 and still growing. The aliens won't expect anything like this." The storm was massive, its eye wall almost perfectly formed, just waiting for the Tempest to step in and take control. Commander Lee studied the battle plans one last time. Unlike normal naval operations, this mission required them to do everything backwards. Instead of avoiding the storm's fury, they needed to embrace it. "All stations, report readiness," he called over the intercom. The responses came back quickly. "Engine room ready. Weather control systems online. Hull integrity at maximum. All wind channeling panels responsive." Each confirmation brought them one step closer to the most daring military operation in human history. The Tempest slipped out of port under cover of darkness, its special hull design making it nearly invisible to both conventional radar and alien scanning systems. As they approached the forming hurricane, the crew could feel the energy in the air, that electric tension that comes before a massive storm. Beginning storm merger protocols, Maya announced, her fingers flying over the controls. This was the moment of truth. They'd practiced this dozens of times, but never with a storm this powerful. The Tempest's wind channeling panels began to move in perfect synchronization, creating patterns that matched the hurricane's natural flow. The ship pushed deeper into the storm system, riding the outer bands like a surfer catching a wave. But instead of being thrown around by the fierce winds, the Tempest began to dance with them. Each gust that hit the ship was captured, redirected, and used to power their movement further into the heart of the storm. "This is incredible," one of the junior officers whispered, watching as the ship's systems merged with the hurricane's energy. The Tempest wasn't just surviving the storm, it was becoming one with it. Readings showed wind speeds now exceeding 200 miles per hour, yet inside the ship, you could barely feel a tremor. Maya monitored the alien vessels through their long-range sensors. The invaders had noticed the approaching super hurricane, but they weren't retreating. Why would they? They had no idea this storm was different from all the others they'd hidden in before. "Ready for final merge," Lee announced, guiding the Tempest toward the hurricane's eye. This was the trickiest part. They needed to position themselves perfectly to take control of the entire storm system. One wrong move, and they'd lose their chance to harness its power. The ship passed through the eye wall, and for a moment, everything went quiet. They were in the calm center of the storm, surrounded by towering clouds that reached miles into the sky. It was like being in the center of a massive stadium, with walls of wind and rain spinning around them. Initiating full storm control sequence, Maya called out. The Tempest's most advanced systems came online, sending out pulses of energy that resonated with the hurricane's natural frequencies. Slowly but surely, the storm began to respond to their commands. Through the bridge windows, they could see the impossible happening. The hurricane's massive eye wall was moving in perfect sync with their controls. They weren't just riding the storm anymore. They were steering it. The Tempest had become the heart of a weapon more powerful than anything humans had ever wielded. Lee looked at his crew, seeing the same mix of determination and amazement on every face. They had done it. They had turned one of nature's most destructive forces into a controlled weapon. The aliens thought they knew Earth's weather, thought they could use it against us. But they were about to learn just how wrong they were. As dawn approached, the Tempest sat ready in the eye of the perfect storm, waiting for the order to engage. This wasn't just a battle for Earth, it was humanity's chance to show that we could turn even our planet's greatest challenges into our strongest advantages. The moment of truth arrived as the HMS Tempest, nestled in the heart of the super hurricane, approached the alien fleet hovering above Miami. Through the swirling clouds, their massive ships looked like silver islands floating in the sky, their surfaces gleaming despite the darkness of the storm. "They still think this is just another hurricane," Commander Lee noted, watching the alien vessels maintain their position. None of their ships had moved to escape the approaching storm. Why would they? They'd been using Earth's hurricanes as hiding places for months. Dr. Meyer's voice was steady as she reported, storm strength holding at Category 5. All wind channeling panels responding perfectly. "We're ready." Her hands moved across the control panel, adjusting the complex systems that kept them in harmony with the massive storm around them. The first alien ship noticed something was wrong when the hurricane's eye wall didn't behave as expected. Instead of following normal weather patterns, the storm began to concentrate its fury directly toward their position. By then, it was too late. "Unleash the storm," Lee ordered, and the Tempest's crew sprang into action. The ship's special panels rotated in perfect sequence, directing the hurricane's full force at the alien fleet. Winds exceeding 200 miles per hour slammed into their ships, catching them completely off guard. The alien vessel's energy shields, designed for space combat, flickered and strained against the raw power of Earth's weather. They had never encountered a storm they couldn't predict or control. The sight of their mighty ships being tossed around like leaves in the wind was both terrifying and magnificent. "Look at that!" One of the crew members shouted as the first alien ship lost its positioning, tumbling sideways in the fierce winds. Its sleek design, so perfect for space travel, worked against it in the atmosphere. The wind caught it like a sail, sending it spinning away from its formation. The aliens attempted to fire their energy weapons, but the hurricane's powerful winds disrupted their targeting systems. Every shot they fired was caught in the storm's fury, dissipating harmlessly into the clouds or being turned back against them by the Tempest's clever use of wind currents. Maya watched the readings with growing excitement. Their shields are failing. They never designed their ships to handle this kind of sustained atmospheric pressure. The aliens had become so dependent on using storms as cover that they'd never prepared for one to be used as a weapon against them. The Tempest moved through the storm like a conductor leading an orchestra of wind and rain. Each movement was precise, calculated, using the hurricane's natural energy to maximum effect. The crew had trained for this, but the reality was more powerful than any simulation. Another alien ship lost its battle with the storm, its engines overloading as it tried to maintain position against the relentless winds. The sight of such advanced technology being defeated by Earth's weather sent a clear message. Nature itself had chosen a side in this fight. "They're trying to retreat," Lee announced as the remaining alien vessels attempted to climb above the storm. But the Tempest was ready. With a series of careful adjustments, they directed the hurricane's updrafts to follow the fleeing ships, battering them with wind and rain even as they tried to escape. The battle lasted less than an hour, but it changed everything. The alien fleet, which had arrived so confident in their superiority, was forced into a humiliating retreat. Their mighty ships, scattered and damaged, disappeared into the upper atmosphere, leaving behind only the lingering winds of the storm. As the Tempest's crew celebrated their victory, Maya studied the readings from the battle. "We didn't just beat them," she said. "We showed them something they never expected. that humans don't just survive our planet's extreme weather, we've learned to work with it. The hurricane began to calm as the tempest released its control, letting nature return to its normal patterns. Looking out at the clearing skies, Lee couldn't help but smile. The aliens had thought Earth's weather was just a convenient hiding place. Instead, it had become humanity's most powerful ally in defending their home. Word of the victory spread quickly through military channels. Humanity had stood up to an alien invasion not with massive space fleets or advanced energy weapons, but with something the invaders never expected: the ability to turn nature itself into a defense system. The victory celebration aboard the Tempest was cut short by urgent warnings from their radar systems. The aliens weren't retreating, they were regrouping. Dozens of ships emerged from hiding places in storms across the globe, all converging on their position. This wasn't just a counterattack, it was an all-out assault. "They're angry," Commander Lee observed, watching the incoming vessels on the main screen. "We've wounded their pride, and now they're throwing everything they have at us." The alien ships moved with new purpose, no longer trying to hide their presence. Dr. Maya's fingers flew across the control panel as she analyzed their approach. "They're trying something different. Look at their formation. They're actually fighting against the weather patterns now instead of hiding in them." The aliens had learned from their first defeat and were adapting their tactics. The Tempest's crew rushed to battle stations as the enemy fleet surrounded them. The ship's systems were already strained from controlling the super hurricane, and now they faced their greatest test. "Hull integrity at 85% and dropping," a crew member reported. "The storm's taking its toll on our systems." Lee made a quick decision. "We can't take on their entire fleet directly. We need to use what we know about weather patterns." He turned to Maya. "Can we split the hurricane? Create multiple storm cells?" Maya's eyes lit up. "It's risky. We've never tried it before. But theoretically." She began adjusting the wind channeling panels, carefully redistributing the storm's energy. The hurricane started to break apart into smaller, but still incredibly powerful storm cells. The alien ships fired their energy weapons, but the Tempest was already moving, diving into the nearest storm cell. "They can't target what they can't see," Lee said as the clouds enveloped them. The ship's special hull design allowed them to navigate through the fierce winds while their enemies struggled to maintain formation. Each time the aliens thought they had the Tempest cornered, the ship would emerge from one storm cell only to disappear into another. It was like a deadly game of hide and seek, played out in the shadow of the clouds. The crew pushed their training to the limit, performing maneuvers that would have torn any normal ship apart. "Power systems critical," an engineer shouted as another blast rocked the ship. The Tempest's revolutionary technology was being pushed beyond its design limits. Warning lights flashed across every console as they fought to maintain control of both their ship and the surrounding storms. Maya noticed something strange in the weather readings. "Commander, look at this." The alien ship's energy weapons were actually adding power to their storm cells, making them stronger. Every missed shot pumped more energy into the atmosphere, feeding the very storms they were trying to fight against. Lee quickly understood the advantage. "We can use their own attacks to power our defense." He ordered the crew to position the Tempest where enemy fire would strengthen their storm cells the most. The aliens were literally shooting themselves in the foot with every attack. The battle reached its peak as the Tempest executed a daring maneuver, diving through the eye of one storm cell and emerging unexpectedly through another. The alien ships, caught off guard, crashed into each other trying to avoid the sudden burst of hurricane-force winds directed at them. Maya's voice was tense but excited. "The ship's systems are barely holding together, but we're winning. Their formation is breaking apart." The aliens had never faced an enemy that could turn their own power against them like this. Through the chaos of the battle, the crew worked together like a well-oiled machine. Each person knew their role, understood the importance of their task. They weren't just fighting for victory anymore, they were fighting for survival. As the alien fleet began to scatter, Lee looked at his exhausted crew with pride. They had done the impossible, taken on a superior force and won, not through brute strength, but through their unique understanding of Earth's weather. The Tempest might be damaged, but they had proved that humanity's greatest strength wasn't technology, it was their ability to adapt and use nature's power in ways their enemies never expected. The aliens had come to Earth thinking they could use our weather against us. Instead, they learned a harsh lesson about underestimating both nature's power and human ingenuity. The storm wasn't just their battleground anymore, it was humanity's strongest ally. The discovery that changed everything came in the middle of the battle. While analyzing data from the ship's sensors, Dr. Maya noticed something extraordinary in the storm patterns. "Commander," she called out, her voice filled with excitement despite their dire situation. "I think I found a way to amplify the hurricane's power exponentially." The Tempest's bridge was a chaos of flashing warning lights and status reports as Commander Lee made his way to her station. The ship had taken heavy damage from the alien counterattack, but they were still in the fight. "Show me," he said, leaning over her console. Maya pointed to a complex series of weather patterns on her screen. "See these energy signatures? The aliens' weapons aren't just making our storms stronger, they're creating a cascade effect in the atmosphere. If we can harness that energy..." Her fingers flew across the keyboard, running simulations. The results were staggering. By carefully positioning the Tempest and using its wind-channeling panels in a specific sequence, they could create a weather phenomenon unlike anything ever seen on Earth. The hurricane wouldn't just grow stronger, it would become a force of nature beyond anything in recorded history. "It's risky," Maya admitted, looking up at Lee. "We've never pushed the ship's systems this far. We could lose control of the storm completely." The crew around them fell silent, waiting for their commander's decision. Lee studied the data for a long moment. The alien fleet was regrouping for another attack, and their ship was already badly damaged. They needed something game-changing. "Do it," he ordered. "Better to risk everything than surrender Earth." The next few minutes were intense as Maya reprogrammed the ship's weather control systems. The Tempest's wind-channeling panels began moving in new patterns, adapting to their calculations. Around them, the storm started to change. "Power readings are off the charts," called out the engineering officer. The ship's hull creaked and groaned as it channeled unprecedented amounts of energy. Outside, the clouds began to glow with an eerie light as lightning danced between them in continuous streams. The alien vessels noticed the change too late. The storm around them transformed into something that defied description, a swirling vortex of wind, rain, and lightning that seemed to have a mind of its own. The Tempest sat at its heart, conducting nature's fury like a maestro leading the world's most powerful orchestra. "It's working," Maya shouted over the roar of the storm. The hurricane had become a superstorm, with wind speeds that broke every record in history. The alien ships, despite their advanced technology, were being tossed around like leaves in a tornado. Through the bridge windows, they watched in awe as their enhanced storm tore through the alien fleet. Ships that had seemed invincible just hours ago were now struggling just to stay airborne. Their energy shields, designed for space combat, couldn't handle the raw power of Earth's amplified weather. One by one, the alien vessels were pulled into the storm's fury. Some managed to retreat to higher altitudes, while others were caught in the massive vortex the Tempest had created. The sight was both terrifying and beautiful, humanity's ultimate display of mastery over nature's power. "We've got them on the run," Lee announced as the remaining alien ships fled upward, desperately trying to escape the storm's reach. The crew cheered, though they knew their victory had come at a cost. The Tempest's systems were strained to their absolute limits. Maya watched the readings with a mixture of pride and amazement. They hadn't just created a stronger storm, they had demonstrated humanity's unique ability to understand and work with nature's most powerful forces. The aliens, with all their advanced technology, had never imagined Earth's weather could be turned into such a formidable weapon. As the superstorm began to dissipate, its energy gradually releasing back into the atmosphere, the crew of the Tempest knew they had witnessed something historic. They had proven that humanity's greatest strength wasn't just its technology or determination, it was our ability to learn from and harness the varied forces that had shaped our world for millions of years. The aliens had come to Earth thinking our weather was just an inconvenience to be hidden in. Instead, they discovered that nature itself had become humanity's most powerful ally in defending our home. The message from the alien fleet came just as the sun was breaking through the clouds. It appeared on every communication channel worldwide, but this time the tone was very different from their initial demands. Earth is hereby designated as a Class X natural hazard zone. This system is to be marked in all star charts as extremely dangerous. No further contact is recommended. In the aftermath of the battle, the Tempest limped back to port, its revolutionary hull bearing the scars of its incredible victory. The crew stood on deck, watching the last alien ships disappear into the upper atmosphere. They weren't retreating in defeat, they were running in fear of what Earth and its people had proven capable of. Dr. Maya worked tirelessly in her makeshift office at the naval base, analyzing data from the battle. "We didn't just beat them," she explained to a room full of military officials and scientists. "We showed them something they'd never seen before, a species that could harness and control its planet's natural forces." The news spread quickly across the globe. Humanity had defended itself not with nuclear weapons or massive armies, but by turning Earth's weather, long seen as one of our greatest challenges, into our strongest defense. The victory belonged not just to one nation, but to all of humanity. Commander Lee stood before a new class of recruits for the expanded Hurricane-class program. "What we achieved wasn't just about technology," he told them. "It was about understanding our world well enough to work with it, not against it. That's something our visitors never learned to do." The Hurricane-class battleship program grew rapidly. New ships were built, incorporating lessons learned from the Tempest's historic battle. Each vessel was a testament to human ingenuity, a perfect blend of advanced technology and respect for nature's power. Around the world, weather stations were upgraded with new monitoring systems. The technology developed for the Tempest wasn't just useful for defense. It revolutionized how humans understood and predicted weather patterns. For the first time, we could work with nature's most powerful forces instead of just trying to survive them. The aliens' message had an unexpected effect on Earth's nations. The reminder that we were all potential targets for advanced civilizations broke down old barriers. International cooperation, which had begun with the Hurricane-class project, expanded into other areas. Humanity had found unity in facing a common threat. Training for new Hurricane-class crews became one of the most sought-after programs in the world. It wasn't just about learning to pilot a ship, it was about understanding the delicate balance between technology and nature. Each crew member had to become part meteorologist, part sailor, and part environmental scientist. Maya spent her time traveling between weather stations, teaching others what they'd learned about working with storms. "The aliens thought our weather was just an obstacle," she would explain. "They never understood that Earth's power could be guided, not controlled. That was their biggest mistake." The Tempest itself became a symbol of human achievement. Though newer ships were built with more advanced technology, none could match the pride and history of the vessel that had first proved humanity could defend itself using nature's own power. Years later, the ship's original crew would gather for reunions, sharing stories of that incredible battle. They had done more than just win a fight. They had changed how humanity saw itself in relation to its world. We were no longer at the mercy of Earth's powerful weather systems. We had learned to dance with them. The alien designation of Earth as a natural hazard zone became a point of pride. Let the galaxy know that this little blue planet wasn't just another world to be conquered. Here, both the people and the planet itself would fight back against any who threatened them. As new generations joined the Hurricane-class program, they learned about more than just operating advanced ships. They learned the most important lesson from humanity's first contact with alien life, that our greatest strength isn't in fighting against nature, but in learning to work alongside it as partners in defending our home. The story of the Tempest became legend, taught in schools alongside other great moments in human history. It marked the point where humanity proved that even the most advanced civilizations couldn't match a species that had learned to harness the raw power of its own world.